I'm going to dedicate these words, this sermon, to the memory of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I wrote this before I knew, but these words are in her memory. These words are to lift up her work through all her life and what she has brought to us, this country. So this is for you, this is for her memory, and for all of us to take her memory, her work, as a call for the work that we continue doing in the many years to come and the next months of our life. Minametzar karati ya anani bamerchavia. From a narrow place I call you, God. Respond to me with expansiveness. This verse that we chant in joyous celebrations as part of the Hallel service is a call to God to save us and bring us out from a narrow place. The word metzar means narrow. The word merchav means expansiveness. We spend much of our lives yearning to break free from the narrow place. We yearn from places of expansiveness, of freedom. This yearning to be free from the narrow place is especially present as we have spent so much time in our homes and behind masks and quite literally in lockdown. This yearning is perhaps the basic yearning we have for this year when we pray to be inscribed in the book of life. We hope and pray that we can move from this narrow, very narrow year to a year of darkness, of pain and injustice, a year of injustice, death and suffering, to a year that brings light, blessing, new moral leadership, new opportunities, sweetness, and especially health. Giving birth also holds this kind of passage. A newborn is pushed forward from narrow darkness to the openness of the world and life. The same process is true when we conceive and birth new ideas, new concepts, art, music, writing. We bring forth something new that was hidden, perhaps in a place of darkness, to a place of light. Creation, giving birth, holds joy and grief, excitement and fear. There is a moment on the birthing table that feels like dying. Says Valerie Kaur, an American Sikh activist, documentary filmmaker, lawyer, educator, and faith leader, describing what it was like to give birth to her child. There is a moment on the birthing table that feels like dying. She explains, the body in labor stretches to form an impossible circle. The contractions are less than a minute apart, wave after wave. There is barely time to breathe. The medical term? Transition. Because feels like dying is not scientific enough. Life and fear come together. Hayom Harat Olam. Today is the birthday of the world. That is one of the ways that rabbinic tradition understands Rosh Hashanah. Now, the translation is not exact. The word harat means more specifically conceived, from the word herayon, pregnancy. It is also in the present tense. So it seems that the best way to translate is, today the world is conceived. Most of our liturgy in the high holidays focuses on God as a father or a king, Avinu, Malkeinu, with imageries that speak to a masculine, powerful, all-knowing God. But our liturgy also calls out God's attributes using feminine imagery. We say Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum Vechanun, relating to God as the source of Rachamim, of compassion. And Rachamim, which comes from the word Rechem, womb, speaks to motherly compassion from the womb. I would offer that our God is all of these things: Father, Mother, all-powerful, empathic, embracing, just as well have all multiple attributes and ways of being in the world, regardless of our gender identity. The present tense on the verse Hayom Harat Olam stretches the idea that today is not the birthday of the world, celebrating 5,781 years old, give or take a few billion, but that today is the birthday. Today is the birthday of the world. Or if we want to be more accurate, today is the conception day. Today is the conception day of the world. Rosh Hashanah marks an ongoing creation that is happening right now. Rabbi Adina Allen from Jewish Studio Project writes, "Today is the day the world is conceived. The day when the forces of the universe unite and the possibility of something new is formed." I really want to hold on to that. I want to hold on to the belief that today we, each of us as individuals and as a collective, our country and the world, have an opportunity to form something new. Professor Tikva Frymer-Kensky writes, "Labor is a powerful experience. It is a time in which humans are joined by the divine, are partners to the divine, partake on divine nature, and create the divine image. It is a moment in which we confront God, a moment in which we can realize that being humans involves the responsibility to be part of God's activity, to be a part of God. Labor is a time when human social activity is integrated with the forces of nature. An event that makes us conscious that human life is intertwined with and part of a cosmic ongoing scheme. It is a moment in which we confront God, a moment in which we can realize that being human involves the responsibility to be part of God's activity, to be a part of God. Based on one interpretation, today is the anniversary of the sixth day of creation rather than the first. According to this idea, what we celebrate today is not the creation of the world, but the creation of the first human being, the creation of humankind. So instead of thinking about it as the birthday of the world, in this teaching, the conception day of the world, what we think about it is as the conception day of humankind. And our tradition holds strongly the idea that when we were created to be partners of God in this world. That is our responsibility. We are intertwined with God and God's creation, and we are intertwined with each other and all creatures. TBC member Rabbi Natan Margalit writes, our tradition has taught us from Genesis onward that we are invited to be creators, to audaciously dare to change the world, but only as co-creators, as part of the awesome and miraculous creation of which we are one part. This year, we are being offered the opportunity to birth a new world. The gift of Rosh Hashanah is perhaps that. The gift of Rosh Hashanah is that every year we have an opportunity to take responsibility, to be part of God and be part of the ongoing work of creation. And this is true this year more than ever. When we are walking in a narrow, dark tunnel, and it is hard to see the light on the other side. Valerie Kaur begs us to consider birthing as a metaphor for the creation of something new for this country, and invite all of us to be a midwife for the world at this moment. She says, so the mother in me asks, what if? What if this darkness is not the darkness of the tomb, but the darkness of the womb? What if our America is not dead, but a country that is waiting to be born? What if the story of America is one long labor? What if all our grandfathers and grandmothers are standing behind us now? Those who survived occupation and genocide, slavery and Jim Crow detentions and political assault. What if they are whispering in our ears, you are brave? What if this is our nation's greatest transition? What does the midwife tell us to do? Breathe, and then push. Because if we don't push, we will die. If we don't push, our nation will die. Tonight we will breathe, says Kaur. Tomorrow we will labor in love, through love, and your revolutionary love is the magic we will show our children. The times are dark now, and at times we hurt, and we feel like we are dying. But what if? What if we see in this pain and the darkness as the opening to life and birth? We breathe, and we push, and we labor in love to conceive what's next. I know I am asking myself, and I invite each of us to ask, what world do we want to conceive today? What is the world that is being born from this darkness, from the injustices we witness, from this pandemic, from this time of isolation, from this time of reckoning? What world is the one that can emerge from it? How can we, each of us, make choices for the future as we transition, we hope soon, from this darkness to life? These questions are not theoretical. These are questions that each of us can ask ourselves. Many of us have strengthened connection with loved ones that if it wasn't for the pandemic and Zoom, we wouldn't have. Can these relationships be a priority? Many of us, for the first time in a long time, picked up the phone to call people in our community to check with them, even if we didn't know them before. Is this something we could continue to do more often? Many of us have spent more quality time with our children, our elderly parents, even if needing to do it physically distance. How are we planning to spend our time after the pandemic? Many of us have realized that some of the priorities we had before the pandemic need to be shifted. Can we do that? Can we commit? Many of us have learned things about ourselves and about our relationships that we didn't know before. What are you planning to do with what you have learned? Many of us have recommitted to work for healing and justice for all human beings with more fervor and urgency. How do we make sure that this is a commitment that we can sustain? A commitment that outlasts the urgent moment. In a sweet poem for children, that imagines a father in the future telling his children about how the virus in the year 2020 changed the world for good, the dad says, all habits became extinct, and they made way for the new. And every simple act of kindness was now given its due. But why did it take a virus to bring the people back together? Asked the child. Well, sometimes you got to get sick, my boy, before you start feeling better. Rosh Hashanah invites us to see the darkness of this moment as the darkness of the womb rather than the darkness of the tomb. Perhaps this moment is our time of great transition. We have no other option. We have no other option than to push. Push for a new life and a new birth. Hayom Harat Olam. Today, we conceive the new world that awaits us, a world of life and health, a world of justice and joy. We embrace it, we breathe, and we push through the darkness of this moment for a new life to come this 5/7/81. I invite you to come together and labor for the sake of all our lives, for the new world we need and deserve. Shana Tova. Shana Tova.